Hello and welcome to another Tuesday talk with Ruby Reese. Shortly, I will be joined by Catherine and Killian from Little Woofers Dog Training. Tonight, we'll be talking about hidden pain and behaviour. As always, with this format, we will try to keep things informal and chatty. So we will be making generalizations that might not be specific to you, your dog, or your situation. So I think Little Woofers is also in the chat. So I just have to get them to invite them to join. I think we could be set up for success. Accept.
And I think we're just about there.
Very good. I appreciate it because I was going to really start looking like a granny here that's not able to work technology, sending out invites and not sending.
That's all right. I'm sitting here going, I know it's here somewhere. I might as well nearly looked under the laptop just to check that's where it landed.
Yeah. No worries. We're here now, and I'm delighted that I don't have to make up a whole load of stuff about behaviour and pain. But I really, really appreciate you joining. Would you mind introducing yourselves to us?
Absolutely, no, and thank you so much for having us, Killian. So I'm Killian, one half of Little Woofers, and my wife Catherine, who's here beside me, is the other half. So we started Little Woofers probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, and I trucked on the training route and did like tracking training and scent detection training, and Catherine went off the behaviour route and certified through the ISCP on the behaviour side, and now the both of us have gone down this pain course and qualified as dynamic dog practitioners as well to add to the toolbox.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I suppose for anyone that's watching that doesn't know me, I'm Killian from Ruby Reese. We set up our company just over a year ago, and we have a range of natural dog treats, shampoo, conditioner, and nutritional supplements. We came up with the concept because our dog has lots of allergies, sensitive skin, sensitive tummy, and of course we care a lot about her general nutrition and well-being as well, so we wanted to create a brand using top quality products. Enough about me, and back to pain and behaviour. So why did you start doing this course? It's really interesting.
Yeah, it was, we've always kind of taken a holistic view. So anytime we're training, working with a dog, you're working with the dog in front of you. And, you know, since we started, we've asked about what that dog's day looks like to understand what might be influencing behavior, or how do they react in certain situations? What do they eat? You know, as you've just touched on there, it's such an important component in how a dog feels and experiences day-to-day life. And there was always this missing piece to the puzzle. There was always a factor that was, well, actually, what do we know about pain? How, like, a dog can't write it in its diary and say, strained my ankle today, do you mind walking me less tomorrow? You know, so how are we going to bridge that gap? And the more we looked into it, the more we found that it's actually missing in so many different areas. And when you look at ties to behavioral issues, so many different ones can have connections to pain and discomfort. And then when you look further in and go, what's out there for it? There isn't a lot. And it's kind of, it's an emerging area in terms of how we can understand what's going on for any dog, and what may be influencing something that could go unnoticed, you know, otherwise. And that's it. Just it with our own three, you know, we now look at them as rickety, bockety, dodgy dogs. With our own three, you know, there's been times where small changes in how they've behaved have been indicators of something worse going on. And that really, you know, kind of drove it home. And I always lean on one case in particular, which is before the course, where a dog came to us with general anxiety described by the owners. And when we were in that session, we were looking at that dog going, we look at dogs a lot. We see a lot of dogs move. This one's not moving right. Mm-hmm. But we didn't have the tools. We didn't have the words. We didn't have the, you know, understanding, the capabilities, whatever you want to call it. It was a missing piece of the puzzle for us to be able to actually say, this is what needs to be looked at, or this is the route you need to go. Now, thankfully, those on our voice went and got x-rays. Now the vet cleared that first set of x-rays. A second vet a time later reviewed the x-rays again, and the dog was doubly hip displaced with so severe on one side it needed replacement. And you're going, imagine now, if we knew what we knew now, then chances are we could have pushed that so much quicker for the dog.
Definitely.
And it was one of those where it was a non-negotiable for us. Is, well, actually, we need this. We need this in our tool set. We need this as part of what we're doing, and we need this in Ireland as something that we can provide and assist people with, because it's got to be there in some way for so many dogs. I think the study done by Daniel Mills estimated between 28 and 82, which is a nice wide range for a study to estimate, might I add. But 28 to 82% of behaviour cases have some form of pain or discomfort component. And that was across a number of researchers that fed into it and based on their own caseloads. So that's where we went down the rabbit hole. We're still somewhere down there if you happen to see us drag us out.
But I suppose it makes a lot of sense in a way. Like when you first think about it, pain and behaviour sounds so far away, or pain and let me put it as dog training sounds so far away from each other, because you're training bad learned behaviours from, that's kind of the thoughts that people often would have. But I suppose if you think about your own mood and when you're in pain yourself, then you can see how you might have a snappy answer at someone, or you might, and then things start to make, from a very human level, at least our understanding of pain, I guess, it makes a lot more sense. So
Absolutely.
do we see this with, do dogs have moods? Does it affect dogs' moods in a way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, a classic example is hanger. Anyone that's met me knows I'm a sufferer. And again, going back to what can the dog tell you, they'll tell us in a different way. And it might be, resource guarding, it might be fly snapping or stargazing. So like these moments that we're going, what are you actually doing? And this is, these are the things behind it. It could be as subtle as licking their paws. There's lots of different ways that they may show up, but it's certainly from a mood perspective where we get dogs, where the owner reports that it's time to time, it's ad hoc, I can't pin it down. I've tried to see, was it big dogs, small dogs they're reactive to, whatever, and it's from time to time you will often see that is pain related, and it's where that dog's at on the pain scale that day, and that's dictating their mood, their hanger levels, whatever you want to pitch it as. Similarly, like when people with migraines, they might, even before the migraine gets onset, you can see their wick is shortening with anyone around them. And then they go, right, okay, yeah, I know why I was a bit short this morning. But yeah, it absolutely feeds into it. And pardon the pun of feeding in, gastrointestinal stuff is huge in this area as well. And can really, again, so much dopamine and serotonin produced in the gut. We're talking about this can have a major impact on a mood on a given day.
Definitely. And you mentioned behaviors that we know could be good indicators that your dog's in pain and they just can't tell you. So I suppose if your dog hasn't been hit by a car, or there's been no event that's clearly going to link pain, are there typical behaviors that we could be looking out for? Are there ways that they tell us? I know, for example, that Ruby, our French bulldog, if she has something with her leg, she might start biting that leg. But are there things that people could be looking out for as very basic indicators of pain?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's huge things. So like PICA, which is random object consumption. Dogs who eat stones and pebbles and stuff, and it's compulsive. And that's at an extreme end. One that we regularly see in the average dog is obsessive play. So that dog who will just keep chasing the ball, who will just keep pushing on, and ball throwing is quite a compulsive behavior. The adrenaline that's fed in through the chase masks the pain. So the dog feels good, it gets a dopamine hit, and then it seeks more, even though they could be wearing down a joint that's not in a fit state to do it. Noise sensitivity comes up quite significantly. So that's like not necessarily fireworks at Halloween, but maybe trucks and buses when you're out and about, or anything passing the house, or pots and pans banging. So it's like a heightened sensitivity to any noises in particular. Separation anxiety, again, through like ourselves, I feel sick, I just want to hug. the dog learns to hug, gets that feel good, and then craves that because that's when it last felt, that close connection. Resource guarding is another one, and these are some of the big ones, I suppose. Resource guarding, reactivity, separation, noise sensitivity are probably your big 4 or 5. The smaller ones are paw licking. As you said, like Ruby chews, some dogs will just lick paws, and we'll put that down to grooming. But if it was every evening, or if it was every evening, particularly after heavy exercise, for example, that's where we're starting to go, hang on a second, is there something more to this? Digging in the garden is another one, and that's kind of light. We'll often play it off as it's just a dog digging, but it can again correlate to a pain-related or discomfort-related issue. Digging, licking, panting, pacing. Pacing is one of the most bizarre. You go, why would you pace if you're in pain? But again, it's just the dog moving through this stereotypical behavior as a means to giving itself something back and trying to get a resolution for itself. Obviously, you can't reach the press and pop a pill and solve its problems. And this is what it's working through to try and get it. And what we kind of say to the last question in our consultation is there anything odd your dog does? And you'd be amazed at the stuff that comes out of that. It could be the lazy sit. They always sit, with one leg cocked out to the side. Which leg? If it's a male, do they cock a leg when they pee? They always cock the same leg. They will turn around to cock the same leg. Okay, well, why won't they use the other leg? If it's a female, how do they pee? Is it with their head really forward? Is it in a full squat? And these are where the assessment starts to get into like the minutiae of what your dog does and goes, but tell me more. And like the things that people have come up with in that last, what's a quirky thing your dog does? Honestly, they either have nothing that we haven't covered, or they'll say something that's really relevant. And they thought it was just lying with their legs frogged out behind them, or chasing their tail, ball chase, any of that kind of stereotypical compulsive behavior as well will often pass off as they're high energy, it's a collie, it's a spaniel, whatever. And these are all things that very often feed into a pain or discomfort issue, or are a result of a pain or discomfort issue. And news just in from my colleague beside me, and pollen can of course be related to allergies as well, but it's one of those where we will look to go, okay, well, now we're on a decision making tree, let's move through assessing and arriving at one or other conclusion, rather than assuming it's one or assuming the other.
Yeah, and allergies is huge. I mean, it's something that we get into these discussions at lots of doggy events, because our treats, for example, are 100% fish based, and like Ruby herself is allergic to chicken, turkey, potentially venison, some grains that we haven't figured out which ones, and the conversations we get into with people, it's amazing how many people at dog events identify that there could be a problem just by talking to us about these things, and people that put their hand up and say, yeah, definitely our dog has allergies, we just haven't figured out what it is. But I think it's one of those ones that hasn't been addressed entirely in the Irish dog community, and is kind of slipping under the radar too often.
That's it. And I think one of the main takeaways for us from the course was, we're a trainer in the behaviours, we're now got the pain assessment, but it takes a village to raise a child. And where we need to get to in Ireland is that you've got your experts in, and we can all draw and pull from those resources when we need them to say, go talk to a dog nutritionist, because, one of our questions is about wheeze and poos and what they look like and all that sort of stuff, to help us gauge, is there a discomfort issue or a gastrointestinal issue? And then, that's not, we're not going to send you with a report off just saying that. We're going to go, let's connect you with someone that can now help on that issue. Or if it's allergies, going down those elimination routes and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's a really important takeaway from the course, and for the industry as a whole, that we need to make these connections, that we can, even Hemp Heroes you had on, a couple of weeks ago, that's again another one that we'll lean on in the future to go, yes, because, CBD has a role both in pain, and anxiety can be, a feature of pain. So why don't we check out if we're treating anxiety or pain, and then guide through that and be able to connect people with the right dots,
Absolutely. I think there's so many untapped resources in the Irish community. That's one of the major reasons that we set up this format, just to get some of that knowledge out there and start broadening the community's horizons a little bit. Yeah. And I think it's a very interesting time in the Irish dog community anyway. I think there's definitely more specialization coming, and it's really exciting. And so you mentioned about different types of pain. So that's clear that it could literally be anything, right? It's can be something going on in the gastrointestinal system. It could be allergy. It could be skin. It could be skeletal with knee problems.
Yeah.
It could be literally anything.
That's it. I think there's a phrase that came up on the course quite a lot, and it was normal doesn't mean it's okay. And if we think about certain breeds have normal features, but that doesn't mean that they don't cause some pain. And the classic example is, the short nosed breeds struggling to get enough oxygen in. And we're assessing a Jack Russell cross at the moment, and one of the checks is, does the dog's footprint land in the footprint? Does the hind paw land in the footprint of the front paw? And that's never going to happen for a jacker. You know what I mean? There's quite a few breeds that's never going to happen for.
Yeah.
So you'll still observe it, and you'll still say, yeah, okay, this is going on. But I think there's also some, myths is the wrong word, but there's some tropes out there in terms of like, oh, well, Jack Russells will often skip. They'll often just hold a leg and skip along on one leg. And I actually was just saying to Catherine, when I got home, I saw a Dachshund in town who was skipping every step. The commonly accepted basis is that's a 6 out of 10 in terms of pain. Mm-hmm. So once the dog is starting to skip a step, it's a 6 out of 10 in terms of pain. And that will often be turned away in the first instance because it's just a breed thing, and you're going, maybe it is, but that's because either they've a luxation patella or they've something going on, and it still warrants investigation. It's not okay just to write it off and go, yeah, well, a lot of them do it. A lot of them can be in pain, and I think that's the when we think about the stages of all this is where does the pain assessment fall? And we kind of look and go, you're trying to find the right balance, a certain amount of training, a certain amount of behavior work. If you're hitting a brick wall, chances are there's something else going on. And again, that could be nutrition, it could be anxiety, it could be pain, it could be pain related nutrition or anxiety issues. And it's trying to get an answer. And currently the route on that is to go to the vet. And the problem when we get to the vet is that the dog's so flooded with adrenaline and cortisol, they'll get it could well get a clean bill of health. And it's actually the study we're doing amongst practitioners in the association, we're gathering the data on how many dogs went through 1 referral, 2 referrals, 3 referrals before they got a diagnosis, because we know through the case studies we've seen that the number is bigger than you'd like it to be. But at least if we know that, we can prep for that and bring people on that journey. And because it's heartbreaking for someone to go to the vet, be told, no, your dog's fine, it's just a behavior problem, off with you and sort it out with a behavior sort of trainer. You go, yeah, but we've been working on that for a year now or 2 years. I was reading a study earlier of a collie who was 7 years trying to stop the dog from having separation anxiety and digging through carpets. 7 years, including about 2 years worth of sedatives. And it was a pain issue. And once you got some anti-inflammatories, the problem resolved within 4 months. Yeah. And it's just, there's all these cases out there that are building, and it's trying to find the right place for it and bring it to the front,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. And I suppose you already kind of answered my next question. Are there specific breeds that are susceptible to pain, and are there specific life phases in a dog that are susceptible to pain? I'm guessing the answer is it depends, as always. But
so
yeah.
So there's specific breeds that will be, their genealogy will put them at higher risk of things like hip dysplasia or luxation patellas and stuff like that. So yes, there's absolutely certain breeds, and it's well worth going on. If you're looking at a breed of dog, it is well worth going on and having a look through that breed history and knowing. And it's something that is really pushed in the UK with breeders is the likes of hip scoring and stuff, and it's something that we are just not fluent in here at the moment. But they also aren't, bulletproof. We have assessed a dog whose parents were hip scored within range, and that dog is in quite a bit of pain from their movement and their gait. And outside of that, though, in terms of ages and stages, these things can happen right the way through. There are some things that you will look at. So like we sometimes get pups on class or young dogs that are going to be large breeds, and we might pop the owner aside at the end and say, just have a talk to a vet or a physio about this, and they'll go and there'll be like a weakness in the hock or in the ankle, the knee, somewhere like that, and they get to work on that straight away. But there's no massive intervention needed. It's just a little, yeah, you can. And it's not like gangly teenagers, you know,
Yeah.
or when we think about like puppies and how goofy they can be, you know, these are all as they're learning. And what we want to just know is, if there's, you know, abnormalities there are some that they may grow out of and be fine with. But in all cases, things like keeping the dog at the right weight, or you know, engaging in light hydro every now and then, or whatever that is going to be beneficial to them. Are there particular, what I would say is, if people research the breed is going to tell you a lot, but with any dog, it's worth kind of engaging in some form of conditioning outside, walking and running, you know, even if that's light physio or stretching or gentle exercise, walking through, you know, shallow water, stuff like this that just engage the dog's muscles in a different way. You can have pups with hip dysplasia from as young as 3 months, so that is a factor from that early. And large breeds, your Bernese mountain dogs, you know, elbows can often be an issue. Same with actually spaniels. To be honest with you, we had to do a project on breeds, and it was one of those where it was like, maybe we just won't get another dog. You know, every breed has something running through it that can come out in some way, shape, or form. And I think the main thing is for people to educate themselves on their own dog, what the risks are associated with it, and learn a little bit about what that might look like or how it might present. And understanding that the dog may be absolutely gagging for a walk, but that doesn't mean a walk is good for it. And it's like us absolutely gagging for a pint on Friday night, but that does not mean our body's going to thank us for it. And it's this kind of separation from trying to guess what's going on for them to actually taking a step back and going, maybe it's different to what I was expecting.
Brilliant. And I mean, it's you could kind of hit a point there as well for us, because we're actually conservatively managing Ruby's luxating patella, so that she's basically got a dodgy knee for anyone watching in, and we're doing that with physio. We know that she's going to be doing at least monthly physio. We up it at times where she needs it most, and reduce it at times she doesn't. We're working with the Canine Clinic in Cork, so huge shout out to the work that she does. But the you know, we also are very, very aware that Ruby's probably going to be on anti-inflammatories at least once a year for 2 weeks, if not kind of every 9 months. It's just how it is. We've looked into surgery as an option, and it's not working for her. But it's important that people know that there are other options out there, and it's not just go under the scalpel or not. Things.
Absolutely. No, you're totally, you know, nail on the head there. People often ask us, what's the output of the assessment? The output is hopefully to give some form of picture to the vet of where they can go. But what's the next step then? Sometimes it's a pain trial. Sometimes it's as simple as going on, you know, some form of pain trial to see, do you notice a change in the behavior you've observed? It could be an anti-inflammatory trial. So with our littlest one, Eve, she had steroid anti-inflammatories as a means of diagnosis. You know, it's trying to assess what changes in the dog when we apply this factor to it. And yes, sometimes as you've you know, absolutely got going on with Ruby, you know, this is might be a feature, and it's not necessarily going to be a fix that we can just apply, but it's knowledge is power, isn't it? And you gotta have that to know how you can move forward as best as you can and advocate for your dog in front of you, and give them the best crack at life as we can. So I think that's, you know, you're spot on. It's not just going to be every dog that comes about, needs surgery, off it goes. You know, there's a whole range of potential outcomes, and this is going back to that multidisciplinary approach. It could be off the hydro, off the physio, acupuncture, whatever it is, and that's appropriate for it. And that's that decision that will hopefully become more informed as we, you know, as this grows in Ireland, but it becomes stronger then, because we've got, you know, vets that will work with it and understand it. We've got, you know, physios and all this total dog approach to resolutions.
And I suppose there's a great opportunity really for the community to work together. You know, it's we've mentioned so many services like a vet, like a physio, like you mentioned, alternative pain management tools, and anxiety management tools. I mean, these things can surely work very, very well together to build a full picture.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, no, I don't think any one discipline can. None of us have the key. You know what I mean? We're all participating in getting the best answer for the dog, and that is going to look different for every dog in front of you. And it's about, I think having the humility to say, this is as far as I can bring you. This is where I'll get you on this journey, but I need to bring in this person, that person, the other person. Some of it's going to be experimental. Some of it's going to be successful, but getting the dog, and that's it, is starting that journey. That's where, we're saying that's what you have to, that's the first step that we all need to take, is start that journey into this world where we've got now the village that can help us out and get us along the right path with our dog or whatever's going on for them.
Yeah. And I suppose talking about dealing with, so you've got your pain management, and say you've found what works for you, be it one solution or a whole host of solutions together as a full picture. Is it then where behavior needs to be looked at? Is it that the pain goes away and then the behavior automatically improves, or is this now a situation that you're already in, that this dog, I don't know, barks at babies in the park? I don't know what the situation could be. Is training still then needed to accompany this journey, or does it happen after the pain element is remedied a little bit?
So I know this is kind of useful chocolate teapot level, but it does vary per dog. But we have seen both results. So we have seen cases where once the dog was taken out of pain, whether that was through anti-inflammatories, painkillers, whatever the case was, the behavior stopped, because the behavior was solely, it was pathological in serving a purpose to the dog. Once that was removed, that behavior stopped. What we would say, generally speaking, is if the behavior has become learned to the point beyond that pain existing, something like separation anxiety, you're still going to more than likely need to do some behavioral work alongside that. But the point there as well is, you can do all the behavioral work in the world, but if there's an underlying pain, discomfort, or digestive issue, you're never going to fully kind of complete that. And it's putting those blocks in place. So it does absolutely, like, Eve licks her paws when she's in discomfort from her back. When she gets a steroid injection like that, she doesn't paw lick. She doesn't pace. Those two behaviors disappear overnight.
Yeah.
So hypothetically speaking, if there was a magic blue pill she could eat to solve the structural element, then those behavioral aspects would disappear overnight. And I'd be confident in that. And more than likely, noise sensitivity would decrease. She's not particularly noise sensitive, but every now and then she'll spook, and probably because she's in a more alert state than a relaxed state. We've a dog that's has been through an assessment with us and had previously been cleared by the vets through clinical examination, but on receiving the report, the same vet went, I can see what you're talking about. This makes sense. I could not get these results in the surgery here, but this makes sense to me. So that dog's now on its second course of Librela, and its anxiety levels are reducing. And the behaviors that we've worked with the person on over a year and a half, where we were making tiny inroads, and then you'd have a setback and then you'd move forward again. That's now starting to come down and fall into place. And you're going, that's it, and that's it in a nutshell. Where, yes, I think depending on the type of behavior, things like separation anxiety are more, it's news just infanticide, pain memory. So the dog is maintaining what that felt like, and they were in that pain when you left them, and then there's a behavioral learning associated with it. It can be different to other aspects, and you've got to build that new neural pathway then that says, actually, everything's okay when I'm left alone, because I no longer have that human equivalent of plantar fasciitis in my paw, irritating me.
Okay, brilliant. And what are the misconceptions about pain that people often have? So I know I've heard that it's thrown around, that people often kind of see sleep and think that, oh, my dog is lazy or whatever the excuse might be. But are there a lot of misconceptions about pain and pain manifesting itself that you see as well?
Yeah, one of the main ones that I think is the compulsive behaviors. But my dog loves chasing a ball.
Yeah.
It can't be in pain. It loves chasing a ball. It's like, I absolutely hear that. How can you say, I wouldn't go running if I had a broken ankle, but I might do something else that felt good, and I might do something else that gave me a hit of adrenaline, and I might continue in that course. And that's that compulsive aspect for the dog. And that's probably the most common one. Or we, with reactivity as well, we'll often get that the dog loves going for a walk. They love going for a walk, but actually, what's the difference between excitement and anxiety? The level of difference in the actual physiological state of the body experiencing it is relatively small, and it's kind of what happens thereafter that determines it. And I think it's very similar on the pain side, where we can see things that appear totally counterintuitive to what we would expect, and that then feeds into other misconceptions where it's, well, I've heard that's normal for the breed, or they've always done it and they've never had an issue, or yeah, they'll do that there, but then they'll run around like a total fool. It's been commented on about Eve's speed. She is lightning fast when she puts her head down, lightning fast.
Yeah,
but like, she's bandy's an L1 in her actual structure. You know what I mean? So you've got to, it's we've had a few conversations around it with owners where you're going, I hear what you're saying about it. What I would suggest is look at taking a step back and thinking, what if? And that's all, with anything like this, with the misconceptions. Okay, but what if we could say that is related to pain, and we can show you that and talk about it. And then we can show you where we're seeing this pain coming from, and like one of the other cases we had, they'd done absolutely everything, textbook. The dog was raw fed from young, socialized as a pup, training classes, everything. You take all meals were enrichment, the whole lot. And that dog was noise sensitive, dog reactive, fearful of people, and had pica, so would randomly ingest any item that it could find. And the misconception was, well, it's a high energy breed. It was a spaniel.
Okay.
And we're just missing something in the picture that it needs.
Yeah.
But that wasn't mental stimulation, more exercise or anything like that. That was actually addressing the pain that he was in. And he was one of the cases where when we looked at the videos, we went, holy smokes, like, he's got stuff going on the back end and he's got stuff going on the front end. And then they're both collapsing each other in because they're trying to, offset to one or the other. And it's like the lesser of two evils, but they were two big evils for him. So that's one we're still working through. But you can totally understand when you look at that and go, yeah, it's not, high energy breeds. It's not necessarily, any of those breed stereotypes that we feed in, whether it's reactivity or guardiness in breeds. We actually just take a step back and go, what else could be causing this? And it's florious sometimes.
I think everyone's going to be taking a second look at every single thing that their dog does now this evening. I know that when you get Ruby in a wide open space and she gets the zoomies, she's faster than, well, I'm not going to say faster than a greyhound because that's scientifically true, but you could imagine that she does her best. But knowing that she goes and gets assessed fairly often with the physiotherapist is at least a bit of comfort to me. But I presume dogs can do crazy things and not have a serious pain issue as well. I mean,
oh yeah, some can be missing enrichment or stimulation or a job or whatever it is. Absolutely, 100%. And that's where I think where you can look at, sorry, the two dogs are running in from the back garden, wound up, where you can look at, I think it's just about never looking at one or other in isolation. It's like, yeah, a lot of times we'll start behavior work and maybe hit that brick wall and go, let's take a step back now, rather than just trying to claw your way through the brick wall and get there. It's like, if I'm good at what I do and I know I should be getting results, then let's stop and go, why isn't that happening? And yeah, you'll absolutely, because that's where trainers and behaviorists are going to have resolved it through giving the dog a job or, desensitization work or whatever it is. And you hit that wall and go, this is unusual. I thought I would have had results by now. And taking a step back and having a look at it. So it's, I think everyone definitely looks at their dogs a little differently. And I have to say, probably the hardest part of it is our debrief with clients, because we're talking through, and there's been quite a few times people have gotten upset going, I didn't know. Like, you couldn't have known. Don't worry, we know now and we're moving forward. Because the dog is, has shown lots of behaviours, and we've always thought it's just a bulldog, it's just acting out, it's doing it to annoy me, it's winding me up when I'm not looking, it's digging the garden, out of boredom, one of these things, or all of them. And actually it was coming down to it was just trying to push through a pain experience for itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting stuff. And so what tips would you give to dog owners to promote a healthy, pain-free lifestyle?
So this is like, no one's going to like this one. And we've had to change the house. Is wooden floors. Wooden floors are a nightmare for dogs. And when we're doing
change
I always think of Over the Hedge with the squirrel, all paw, or less paw, more claw. And it's like, you see them trying to grip, they're constantly trying to stabilize on floors, porcelain tiles, all that sort of stuff. And, we've now got mats around the couches where they're jumping down, and then as a runner where they typically turn a bend through the kitchen into the hall. So they've got strong grip in those areas. So thinking about areas that your dog can move more freely on, and thinking about play. So if you're going to have a play session, avoid doing it on the wooden floors, because they have to do so much extra stabilization and the risk is much greater. And they'll play, as we've just discussed, they'll do it anyway because they're having a crack with us. But we want to just give them the most stable ground, so like the grass or concrete outside or something like that. And the other one is things like jumping in and out of the car. So it's 6 times the body weight comes through the landing paws when they're jumping out of the car. Like, that's not insignificant. That is one that, that's where the ramps come into their own, or again, the stable ground to jump up from, or it's looking at any factor. So I would say jumping in and out of the car, or jumping up and down stuff, if there's even the couch or something like that, that puts a lot of pressure on. And then playing and running on slippy floors, that'd be the other major one. And the avoiding compulsive games like fetch with a long throw and stuff like that, because the dog will play it and push through even if they're in pain. And listen to the dog, because the dog will try to tell us. So it's looking for those signs. Conversation with a client last night, and it was, he started rolling over when I'm trying to put his harness on. He's never shown fear of the harness. It's never been an issue. Yes, he is reactive on walks intermittently, right back to what we were talking about earlier. But now he has actively started avoiding the harness.
Okay.
And what did you do then? And my favorite response, nothing. I went and made the dinner. Great. Because the dog has gone, no, thank you.
Okay.
And rather than go, we're going for a walk, because I know I meant to walk you for 1 hour every day, or you're going to drive me crazy. And we're going, no, actually, right, we'll snuffle you out the back garden. A nice, slow, steady activity that will give you dopamine and serotonin in, and won't push you beyond anything you want to do yourself. So that's, listen to the dog, and if you think they're not telling you something, listen again and see what else you find.
Good advice. Very good advice. Thank you so much for joining me. For those of you watching, head on over to Little Woofers Dog Training on Instagram and give them a follow. You can bombard them with loads of questions over the next couple of days as well. And if you're not following me, I'm at Ruby Reese Official. Thank you so much for joining. I'm sorry for my technical issues at the beginning, and look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.
That's got to be a tandem effort, Gillian. Thank you so much for having us on. Really appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you again.
Thanks a million. Have a good evening. Thank you.